Hello and welcome to the Latch Lounge podcast. Today we are going to be talking about a really fun subject that I get asked about by my clients all of the time, and that is bottles. So today we are going to be getting through all of the bullshit around bottles because there is a lot out there. I'm Amber Ginn, IBCLC, and empowering moms in their breastfeeding journey is what I do. Breastfeeding comes with a lot of opinions. Your doctor, your mother-in-law, that random lady at the park, and it can leave you feeling like you're constantly second-guessing yourself. That's why I created the Latch Lounge podcast, to cut through the noise and give you real, judgment-free, no BS advice that actually helps. Whether you're nursing, pumping, or combo feeding, this is the place for you to get the real support and information you deserve. So grab a drink, get comfy, and let's get into it. Just like everything in the motherhood space, there is a lot of marketing that can be very misleading, and we can be led to believe that a certain product is more like the breast or less like the breast, and it can really influence our decision making about bottles. So let's jump right in with that. What is the ideal shape of a bottle? If you have eyes and have been on the internet, you have likely been inundated with many different styles and types of bottle nipples, and you are probably feeling a bit confused and overwhelmed. They definitely make it a little bit tricky to navigate what is the best bottle for babies in general, but especially for what is the best bottle for a breastfed baby. Is that a different bottle than just a baby who's exclusively fed pumped milk or who's fed formula? And the short answer is no. There's really no difference between what a baby who is fed breast milk and who is fed at the breast, what they need versus a baby who's fed exclusively pumped milk or formula. Every baby needs the same thing from a bottle, so we definitely don't want to get wrapped up in marketing. When it comes to what is the best bottle for a baby, we want to think about the nipple shape. That is a big factor in terms of how a baby is going to interact with the bottle and what is going to be useful or problematic. When it comes to nipple shape on bottles, we do not want a bottle nipple to look like a breast. And that might sound a little bit confusing because you're probably like, wait, don't we want it to be breast-like? No, we don't. We want it to be a good bottle for a breastfed baby, which are two totally different things. Bottles that are shaped like a breast typically are going to encourage baby to be very shallow on the nipple. When we're thinking of bottle nipples, we want bottle nipples that pass the triangle test. So if you were to make a little triangle with your fingers, your thumb and pointer fingers on each of your hand, we want the tip and base of the bottle to fall within that, the nipple rather, to fall within that. If we have a nipple that has a super duper wide base, then baby is just not going to be able to latch onto that. Even if it's a flexible nipple, like if the texture of the material that the nipple is made out of, even if that is flexible and stretchy, most likely baby is not going to be able to latch onto that. So we want a nipple that looks something like the Dr. Brown's standard nipple, something like that. Keeping in mind that triangle test, whatever brand is working good for your baby is totally fine. When I have moms ask me, what brand do I like? Dr. Brown's is an OG brand. It's working well. It's been working. Most babies do well with that one. That's a fail-safe in most cases. It's not going to work for every baby, but it's a brand that I really like. I'll link in the show notes below a link to the one that I like. I really like the Dr. Brown's that has a glass bottle to accompany it. That's my favorite. If anyone were to ask, that is my best recommendation. There are several brands out there which I'm definitely not going to call out by their names, but many who want to look very much like a breast. There's another word for when we try to look very much like something, and that's the name of the bottle. But there's other bottles like that one that are really focused on looking like a breast, and they're completely missing the point. I've had a lot of clients come to me and they're like, well, I'm using this bottle that looks a lot like a breast and my baby's doing really well on it. And when I use the Dr. Brown's bottle, then my baby is having a hard time and there's milk leaking out of the side and all this stuff. So what does that mean? Why is the breast shaped bottle working well for baby and the other bottles not? Well, the short answer is, in most cases, when we have the bottle that is very breast shaped and has a very wide base, a lot of times it's easier for us to push that squishy wide base up against baby's mouth and kind of make that seal for them, where when we have a bottle that's more like the Dr. Brown's bottle, they have to really latch effectively and deeply onto the bottle in order to get the milk out. And if they're incapable of making a good seal, then they'll lose the milk out the side of their mouth, that's a great indicator that something's not quite right. So that's what I have to say about the shape of the bottle. It's really, really important. But, there's a lot of different bottles out there. Like I said, I do like Dr. Brown's, but that's not the be all and end all. Keeping in mind that triangle test, go ahead and try out a few different bottles and see what works for you and your baby. The next thing is flow rate. So I have a lot of moms come to me and they ask about the rate of flow for the nipple. Should they be using a 6-month flow rate for a 6-month-old baby, or should they be using a preemie one the whole time? And I just want to say, first and foremost, there is no regulating body. There's no standard when it comes to the flow rate of a nipple, and a 0 to 3-month nipple from brand A may be completely different if you look at its drip rate than a 0 to 3-month or whatever a similar equivalent nipple from another brand. So we want to be really sure that we're just evaluating how well our own child is doing with the nipple flow rate that we have. We definitely don't need to be using a specific nipple based on their age. We just want to use the slowest flow nipple that works well for our baby. But of course, working with a lactation consultant who understands how to support you with using a bottle is imperative, because the type of bottle you're using, the type of issues your baby's having, different nuances within your breastfeeding journey are going to make a big difference in what I would recommend. So it's really, really important to make sure that you've got a good care team when it comes to making decisions around the flow rate and nipple type and bottle type and all of that good stuff. I almost wanted to open with this next bit because it's such an important thing, but it's not talked about often, and it's kind of a bit of a hot take, I would say. So I'm just going to get right into that, and that is paced bottle feeding is kind of a waste of time. So I know you're probably like, wait, everyone says to do that. All IBCLCs say paced bottle feeding is important. Why are you saying it's a waste of time? So there is no peer-reviewed substantial, compelling evidence to show that there are any benefits for either breastfed babies or just babies who are never planning to be breastfed when they are fed in a paced feeding style versus just whatever other style. Definitely overfeeding a baby, feeding a baby with a flow rate that's too fast, feeding a baby in a weird position, all of those things are going to contribute to problems. In theory, they can definitely contribute to problems. But at face value, paced bottle feeding is not something that we necessarily need to do. If it's something that you like doing and you feel your baby responds well to, by all means, do paced feeding. But it's very important to me as a practitioner to share evidence-based information, and there's just not the evidence there to compel me to tell clients to do paced feeding. Also, across time, I've been an IBCLC for well over 5 years. I've worked with moms in the lactation space for almost a decade. I have seen time and time again, especially early on in my career, I would tell a new mom, tell a new family, hey, we want to do paced feeding, we want to do this, and we'd follow up on it, and they're like, yeah, that's freaking impossible. When grandma's feeding them, she does not understand to sit baby upright. She doesn't understand the up and down with the bottle, and it's not necessarily feasible for a lot of families. With that said, feeding baby in the paced feeding position isn't always respectful of their spine and the space needed in the front line, and we definitely don't want a baby who's sitting with a hunched back in our lap that we're trying to feed going up and down, up and down. That's just not going to be optimal for their digestive system. So rather than paced feeding, I definitely do not suggest that you just pop that bottle in there and let them go to town. I am a big fan of what is called responsive bottle feeding. That is not the same as paced feeding. It can be used in tandem with paced feeding, but it's really just about that first 5 to 20 seconds of introducing the nipple of the bottle into baby's mouth. And when we're introducing that nipple into baby's mouth, we want to be doing so in a way that allows baby to just suckle, suckle, suckle on a nipple with no milk flowing. And that is going to be most similar to their experience at the breast. Assuming that you're not latching baby on right as you're having a letdown, most likely they're going to have to suckle a bit, do some sucks before there's any milk flowing. And when we can support that same mechanism, that same movement, that same expectation with the bottle, we're going to have a lot easier time going between bottle and breast. So let's talk about when is the best time to introduce a bottle. Every mom that I talk with who is interested in using a bottle at some point always has that question. When is the best time? Can I wait too long? Is there a downside to starting it too soon? And there really is no clear-cut answer to any of those questions. It's not a yes or a no to any of those questions, because what really is going to determine when, how, if to introduce a bottle is going to be, what are your goals? What are your specific breastfeeding goals? What are your goals with using a bottle? What are your goals with pumping? And then we're going to work backward from there. So can you introduce a bottle too soon? The only way that there's a yes to that, is if your goal was to not introduce a bottle and then you did, then that's a problem because you didn't want to do something that you ended up doing. And so that could be in the way of the goal of not having done that. So otherwise, you can introduce a bottle as soon as you would like to if your goal is to use a bottle. You can also not ever introduce a bottle if your goal was not to introduce one. So I know that's kind of like an anti-answer, but it really is super duper nuanced. So if your goal is to have dad do bottles at night because you need some sleep or because you want to do a dance class or whatever, you want dad to give a bottle once a day or however many times a day, that's completely fine. And that can be conducive with your breastfeeding goals. I do want to say, just as like a general recommendation, if we are ever skipping a time, like if baby's getting a bottle of pump milk or formula, we want to make sure that at that time that they were receiving that pumped milk or formula, that we don't skip that time of stimulation for a breast. So if we typically breastfed baby, we'd want to pump. If we are pumping, we'd want to pump. We don't ever want to like give baby a bottle and just assume that that puts our boobs off duty. Like they're not. They need the stimulation if our goal is to be able to provide enough milk for them that they need throughout a day. So always keep that in mind. We don't want to skip complete stimulation sessions, whether it's feeding at the breast or pumping, because if we do, it's definitely going to affect our supply to some degree. So that's always super duper important to keep in mind. Beyond that, I think that bottles are a great thing for modern parents, and they can be a really useful way to have your partner help out with feeding. I think a lot of IBCLCs are just absolutely flabbergasted when a mom tells them that they want the husband, to feed the baby a bottle, and they're like, oh no, there's so many other ways to bond with the baby. That's very true. There are plenty of other ways for your partner to bond with your baby without them feeding the baby a bottle. But if for you, your husband feeding your baby a bottle is an important goal, that's totally workable and doable within your breastfeeding journey. So with all of that said, bottles can be a really useful part of a breastfeeding and feeding journey, obviously, for babies. There are a lot of considerations when it comes to picking the brand, the style, the flow rate, all these different pieces, when to use them, how to use them, what to do if baby is struggling with the bottle, when to try a different one, all of those things. There's a lot of moving pieces, but definitely important always to have a professional in your corner who understands all the nuances of that. So I'm here if you ever need me. I hope you really enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. And as always, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I hope you all have a great day. That's it for today, Mama. If this episode helped, don't stop here. Get even more support at thelatchlink.com. Need one-on-one help? Did you know your insurance covers free lactation care? If you have Aetna, Anthem, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or UHC, you can get free virtual lactation care right from the comfort of your home. Check your coverage and book your session today at thelatchlink.com. And if you're looking for instant help with latch issues, grab my course, Latch Legend, for step-by-step fixes you can use right now. If you love this episode, subscribe and leave a review. It's the best way to help other moms find the support they deserve. Until next time, trust yourself, trust your baby, and know you are doing an amazing job.